We're finally at the end of 2024. Wow, it's been a crazy year for me to say the least. First of all, I didn't think I would ever be doing this, making long form video content for all of you guys. It's been a wild journey, especially the last few months, but we are here. This is the final day of 2024. A lot has happened this year in my personal life and also around the world. AI obviously has been the huge topic of the last year and also this year. AI seems to just continue to be improving day by day. AI generating software has becoming better and better as it creates more accurate videos and visuals. And I still use AI into my day-to-day life with just ChatGPT. I also have Notion AI to just help me kind of like write my own thoughts and write my blog posts. So that's been pretty helpful. But in terms of the world of tech, I'd say it was quite the memorable year. I mean, the Cybertruck finally came out this year. You see a lot of them on the roads in the United States. The Cybercab was unveiled, which I was not expecting at all. That came as a surprise. And there are a lot of cool tech that came out, especially with the Rabbit R1, which is like an AI wearable, and also the Humane AI pin, both which need a lot of work. So hopefully the second generation, they can improve on that. But man, in terms of my personal life, at the beginning of the year, I would have never expected myself to start making long form content, especially on my camera. First of all, I didn't think I would ever buy the camera that I'm shooting this video on right now at the beginning of this year. Starting off with some of the bad that happened to me this year. So at the start of this year, it was kind of rough for me because towards the last few days of last year, I remember getting a text from my friend at 2 a.m. in the morning, and I didn't open up the text at first. I could only think of two things why he would be texting me this late. It was either because it was something very important or something crazy that happened. And unfortunately, it was the latter. I came to find out that one of our mutual friends has suddenly just passed away. And at first, when I saw that text, I didn't want to believe it. It felt so surreal because I just saw her a few weeks ago prior to her passing at my birthday party. And it's crazy to me to think that, all of a sudden she's just gone. So I was really doubting my friend and doubting myself. But, a few minutes passed by, it started to sink in that this has become a reality. And I had to start the grieving process, which, took a good month. But it was definitely hard for me, and it was definitely hard for, my friends that knew her, because she just had so much to do in life. I remember her talking to us about how she wanted to go help out like a third world country and just teach kids about film, and she can't do that anymore. And I remember her talking to us about taking a trip to Nepal and climbing to the base of Mount Everest. Man, she just had so many goals in life that she still needed to achieve, but she couldn't now because she's gone. That really hit deep for me. I mean, I lost a few people that I knew personally, but this death just hit me real hard because I wouldn't say we were that close to each other, but we kept in contact. We saw each other quite often, and we messaged each other here and there. That I'd say it was a pretty good friend relationship. Oh man, yeah, it was emotional at the start of this year. I'm glad that my friends and I got to take one last trip with her. It was her first trip to Japan, and I knew she really wanted to go to Japan. That was like one of the countries that she wanted to visit the most. And I'm glad that we were just able to go with her and being able to experience the culture, the food, the good vibes with her. So I'm glad that we were able to make that trip happen. She gave me a leather journal for my birthday, and that journal holds so much more significance to me than ever. I will continue to write in it daily in 2025 in memory of my friend. But not only that, I lost another friend a few months after, which was also devastating. This also came out of the blue. I was not expecting this at all. Man, it was hard. This one also hit pretty deep, and I don't know. I've lost two good friends this year, and hopefully I don't have to lose any more friends as this new year approaches. But in this day and age, you never know what could happen. Unfortunately, that's the reality of life. I hope everyone just stays safe, stays healthy, spends a lot of quality time with their loved ones and their friends, and just be able to just live our lives to the fullest. Rest in peace, Sanji and Sherilyn. You'll be forever missed and cherished. Another bad thing that happened to me throughout this year was that I had my first unsatisfied client. So this was one of those situations where art is very subjective. So what you think might be a good photo, the client might not think that it's a good photo. Even though I thought, the photos that came out good, she thought otherwise. And I'm also partially at fault because there were one or two things that I completely missed when I was taking her photos during the shoot. And I was like, man, I wish I noticed that sooner. And she noticed it. When I edited the first batch of photos that I gave to her, she noticed it clearly, but I didn't. Now, whenever I go to similar shoots, I carefully pay attention to that one little thing. So it's kind of like a situation where you learn from your mistakes and hopefully you never make that mistake again. And I kind of learned that through this shoot. Now on to some highlights of 2024. You guys probably know what that is. The highlight for me was starting this YouTube channel. At the beginning of this year, I never thought that I would be doing YouTube, let alone this year. But ever since I got the Nikon Zf, which is the camera that I'm shooting right now, back in early May, around that time, I've been using the Nikon Zf almost every day. Definitely for all my class shoots this year. And at first I was like, okay, I need a second body for weddings because I've just been shooting on one body this whole time for the past 2 or 3 years. But I decided to get another one just because of the really good low light capabilities. It's because you're always gonna run into that, especially during weddings. So I needed this camera to be able to just get the job done. But as I was shooting photos, I became more interested in how does the video quality compare to the past Nikon cameras. So I have the Nikon Z7 II, and that works pretty good for video, but the ZF is just so much faster. The autofocus is more accurate. The colors are amazing. I love the 4K internal raw log footage that I can just record on the camera, and it's been amazing so far. I also have the focus mode set to where it basically combines 3 focus modes into one, and I also have back button focus enabled. I noticed that compared to my Z7 II, the autofocus is way faster and more accurate, which comes in clutch, especially for weddings or action shots. Another highlight is starting DaVinci and just learning it from scratch and making a whole YouTube video in a month and a half, basically learning it from zero. I've never been so fulfilled in my life before until I used DaVinci and made my first YouTube video. I've never had that feeling before in my life where I learned everything by myself from scratch, just watching YouTube videos and just me just going into software and just trial and erroring. There was a lot to learn, especially from the sound design to the cuts to the color grading, especially that took a long time. How do you make smooth transitions? How to even add text. And it was a journey for almost 2 months, but I finally made my first YouTube video in October. A lot of you guys enjoyed it, and I hope to make more in the coming year. Hopefully next year I become monetized. That's the goal, hopefully, and hope you guys enjoy watching my videos. Besides the Nikon Zf, I've upgraded my lens vault to include the new 40mm f2 special edition, which is the lens that I'm shooting on right now. So as you can tell, it's a lot more punched in than my 17 to 28mm that I usually use for these types of videos. The biggest reason that I bought this lens is for aesthetic purposes. I love the retro style design, but it actually performs well optically for the price. I got it pretty cheap for around $280. Usually it's like $310, but I found found a seller from Japan that does free shipping, and it was only $280. So that was a great deal. And besides that, the next logical step for me as someone who's getting into video was to get the new Polar Pro VND Chroma 2 to 5 stop black mist. That one is so awesome. What it does is it kind of blocks out the harsh light. So you can think of this as sunglasses for your lenses. When you're out shooting in harsh midday light, sometimes the scene is just way too bright. So what you can do is just put on this filter and you can cut down on that light from 2 to 5 stops. I've been using this a lot. Most of the time I shoot video outdoors. It's in harsh daylight. It also cuts down on reflections. And not only that, I could lower my f-stop to like a 2.8 to get that nice depth of field. This year, I've had the most visits to my website than any other year. I had over 23,000 visits on my website, 21,000 unique visitors, and 32,000 page visits, which is insane to me. One of the reasons why I got so many visits this year is because of my blog post that went viral. It's one called 1 Year Later Review of my 2022 Tesla Model 3 Long Range. So if you haven't checked that blog post out, make sure to do it. I'll leave it in the description below. But because of that, I have been gaining quite a bit of visits almost every day. There's at least 50 to 80 visits on that blog post per day. Shout out to everyone that checked out my blog post. You the real one. And because of that, I got a lot of Tesla referrals this year. This never would have been possible without you, the viewer, so thank you. In terms of traveling, I had the opportunity to visit 2 new countries this year, South Korea and Taiwan. Up until 2021, I had zero interest in visiting South Korea, but in 2022, I saw people posting photos and videos on Instagram, and I was immediately blown away. There's so much sheer natural beauty, and the cafes over there are next level. And I quickly realized that there's actually a lot to do there. There's gorgeous natural landscapes and stylish and minimal cafes all over South Korea. And I was like, I have to visit here one day. I originally wanted to stay for 2 weeks in South Korea, but I quickly realized that 2 weeks just wasn't enough. I loved being in South Korea so much that this is the first time in my life that I extended an international trip. And I'm so glad that I did. At first, I didn't want to spend too much time in South Korea, so I was researching on countries that were relatively close to South Korea, and one of the closest countries to South Korea is Taiwan. Taiwan is a country that I've been wanting to visit for years, but never had the chance to up until this year. There are just so many photo opportunities in Taiwan. It's crazy. I mean, the food is delicious, the people are nice. Some aspects of Taiwanese culture reminds me of Japan, and there's such a chill, laid-back vibe over there. Everything is super cheap, and I could just spend weeks and weeks in Taiwan just exploring the whole country. I was in Taiwan for around 6 days, and although I didn't get to hit all the photo spots that I wanted to, I had a great time meeting up with my friends Ghost Bear and Liz, just kind of exploring Taipei and other parts of the country, eating delicious food and just enjoying each other's company and taking their couple photos, which was super, super fun. I definitely want to stay a bit longer next time when I go to Taiwan and just explore more and just shoot more and just enjoy the vibes over there. I also experienced cherry blossom season in Japan for the very first time. So cherry blossom season was later than usual this year, around a week later than average. So I didn't get to photograph the peak of the cherry blossoms in the photo spots that I have saved. Even though I wasn't able to catch peak, it was still great that I was able to just shoot part of the cherry blossoms, especially in Shibuya, where I got the shot of this porch kind of going through the famous Sakura Street. That was really cool. Not only that, I got to spend a lot of time with my friend Andy, Grace, and CJ. We spent a day trip up to Mount Fuji, and that was super, super fun. It was CJ's first time exploring Japan, and Grace has never been to the Mount Fuji area, so that was also really, really cool. And that made for just an unforgettable moment. I made the spontaneous decision in traveling to New York right after my Korea trip. This was the biggest spontaneous decision that I've ever made because I was debating on whether or not to fly to New York. My friend Andy's birthday party was happening over there. He's gonna be turning 30, and there was like a whole dinner celebration set up from Grace, and I kind of didn't want to miss that. but also I had booked a plane ticket back to LA, so I decided to just cancel my trip back to LA and instead go from Seoul to Newark Airport. It's been over 4 years since I last visited New York, so it was really nice just catching up with friends during my short time there. I was able to do 2 international client shoots this year. If you told me at the beginning of this year that I would be doing an international client shoot, let alone 2 of them in the span of 1 year, I thought that you would be crazy, but it actually happened. My first international client shoot was in Japan and the second one was in Taiwan. I already have 1 international client shoot booked for next year, and it is one of my favorite countries that I've traveled to. And I'm really stoked for that one. I'm hoping to at least get 1 more client shoot out there, but we'll see. I also second shot my first out-of-state wedding for my friend Sandy in Baltimore, Maryland earlier this year. So that was my year in review, and now let's get into my top 5 photos that I took this year. Starting with number 5, I call this one Portraits in the Chaos. So when we went to Japan, me and CJ collaborated with our model friend Miley, who lives out in Japan right now, and we were able to collaborate with her at Hiei Shrine first, and then we made our way to Team Labs Borderless, Azabudai Hills location. This is our new Team Labs, which opened up earlier this year. We were really stoked to just go into this with brand new eyes. I've been to the Team Labs in Minato, I believe, but this one has a lot of new exhibitions in the museums. This was one of the last rooms that we explored, and this was one of the most difficult times that I've had taking portraits. Not because of the model or anything, but because of the conditions that we were in. So first thing is that we were in a dimly lit room, and I was using my Nikon Zf II to take photos at the time because I hadn't bought a Nikon Zf. So with the Z7 II, it kind of struggled in low light situations. It was really hard to focus on Miley when taking portraits. It was having a hard time getting the eye. The second reason why it was so hard to just take portraits in that room was because it was really misty. When you have a low light situation plus foggy or misty, it can be really hard to just nail the focus. So I believe I took around 100 photos just from that one room, and I came back with 7 photos that I was happy with, and they were like in focus. But luckily, this photo right here is the one that I just love the most. I kind of like the contrast of the light and shadow a little bit, her eyes. I just love that. Number 4, a rainy and moody Taipei 101. This is the most difficult self-portrait that I've ever taken in my life. For one, it was raining pretty hard, but the rainy atmosphere made for a really cool vibe where there were some clouds up on top of Taipei 101 and they were rapidly going in and out. So I only had a small window where Taipei 101 was fully showing. The small window was only about a few seconds. So when I arrived at that location, there were already a few people taking photos of Taipei 101 and also photos of them with Taipei 101 in the background. And they usually had friends around. But me, I was solo, so I did not have any friends with me at the time. So what I did is I put my camera on my tripod, set a timer, and basically did continuous bursts of me walking. I waited around 45 minutes, and finally I saw a break in the clouds. And right then and there, I knew that I just had to seize the moment. I already had my settings ready to go, and I clicked the shutter button. It was on 5-second timer. I went to my starting point, and then once I heard the first click, I just kept walking, and it just taking photos 9 times. I immediately raced back to my camera to check how the photos came out, and I was just over the moon. The photos came out really great, and right after I saw the photos on my viewfinder, my camera battery died. So that was one of those moments where you barely get the shot. Literally, that just made my night. Number 3, Sakura light trails. So I've always wanted to capture long exposure light trails under the sakura trees and I finally made it happen this year. I wasn't expecting it to capture it this year because a lot of the sakura spots were not in peak, but I was pleasantly surprised that I was able to get the shot that I wanted. And this is the photo right here, and it was taken at Roppongi, and there's one street that's really known for sakura trees, so that's where I shot it. It was at a very quiet neighborhood, so that was ideal, and there was only one photographer that was with me out shooting, so it was really chill, really calm atmosphere. I think I captured around 10 light trails from 10 different cars. And this one was also tough to get because either your photo comes out blurry since it's a long exposure, or the light trail curve is not smooth at all. But there was one photo where the light trail curve was smooth, and I was like, yes, I got the shot. One thing I love about street photography is its unpredictableness. And this is a shot that I did not have in mind at all. This was not on my bingo card for 2024, not on my shot list at all. When I got this photo, I was super stoked. So I went to the Shibuya Sakura Street, the ground level, pretty much where everyone takes photos at. I was there for like a good hour and a half just shooting, and I was pretty content with the photos that I got. Obviously, it was kind of hard to take photos because there were also like a ton of other photographers and tourists next to me, and they were taking photos as well. As I was leaving, I had to get to this one subway station, and what you have to do from that area is you have to climb up these stairs to a bridge in order to get to that subway station. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw a few photographers with their zoom lenses taking photo in a certain direction, and I really wondered what they were shooting. And so I just walked over there, and I immediately noticed that they were taking photos of the Sakura Street just from a higher angle. So I quickly got out my 70-200 f2.8 zoom lens and just started shooting from that angle. And honestly, I like that angle more than the street level angle. And I was waiting for around maybe 10 minutes. All of a sudden, I see a white Porsche just driving down the winding road. And that was a really cool moment. I just love the contrast of the color of the car against the cherry blossoms, and the lighting was just perfect. This was my favorite cherry blossom shot that I got this year, and it deserves number 2 on my list. Number 1, the world becomes still, totality in Ohio. April 8th, 2024 is the day the Earth stood still for 4 minutes and 28 seconds. This was my number 1 photo of the year because it was 7 years in the making. The last total solar eclipse that happened in the United States was back in 2017, and at the time I was working a regular 9-to-5 job that was just insufferable, and I wanted to go travel and photograph the eclipse so badly, but I just didn't have the chance at the time. And when the solar eclipse happened that year, and I made a promise to myself that I would do whatever I can to capture the next solar eclipse that happens in the United States. And that's what I did. Fast forward to the end of 2023, and I book a plane ticket with my friend Daner. We decided to fly into Pittsburgh Airport early morning on April 8th, and we got a rental car and started driving 2.5 hours to Avon Lake in Cleveland, Ohio. On our drive there, it started to rain heavily, and we started doubting ourselves if we were going to catch the solar eclipse. Fortunately, around 9:30 a.m., the clouds started to clear, and by 1:45 p.m., we got to the spot. It was at a nearby park, and we started setting up our gear. The totality began at 3:12 p.m. We had around 4 minutes 28 seconds, since we were right on the path of totality, to photograph this eclipse. We also had to have the solar eclipse filter on our cameras. I was shooting with a super zoom lens, so I lost the sun at one point, and I was so scared. I thought I was not gonna be able to take the photo that I wanted, but luckily I found the hint of light that was coming from the rim of the eclipse, and I was able to get the shot, and I was so relieved. That was the most stressful photo shooting experience in my life when it comes to just photographing natural phenomena, because you only have a small window. You prepared really hard for it, and if you miss it, it just hits you right in the heart. So I'm glad I was able to get the shot that I want, and this became such an unforgettable experience. This photo earned its number 1 spot on my list because of the immense time, money and effort it took to go to this location and being able to take the shot. And also because there were so many factors involved that could have went wrong but didn't. For example, if there were clouds in the sky during that time, we definitely would have not gotten the eclipse at all. Between the flights and driving, I rented the Nikon 400mm f4.5 from my local camera store. I did have to sacrifice money as well when preparing to take the solar eclipse shot. And even though we missed our flight back to LA, I felt that it was absolutely worth it. My goal for next year is to continue working fewer hours and charging higher rates. That was my goal this year, but I haven't calculated how much I made so far. Still gonna be continuing with that goal into 2025. I also wanna do more destination engagements, and eventually I wanna do destination weddings. I also aim to create more YouTube videos to the point where I can get monetized while balancing my client work and YouTube. What are your guys' goals for 2025? And I want to hear how your 2024 year went. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for an incredible year. I only made a few videos this year, but hopefully I can just build upon this momentum and create a lot more content in 2025. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys on the flip side. Stay gold.